Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Anya, and welcome to Grammarly. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me. We at Grammarly are very big believers in practicality. So I'll do my best to make this talk as practical as possible so you all walk away with some takeaways and frameworks and ideas that prove to work really well for us. And I would love to share them with all of you here. Also leave some time in the end to answer your questions. And before we begin, just to feed my own curiosity, by the show of hands, how many of you are familiar or using the Grammarly product? Oh, wow, cool. It's awesome. All right, let's get started. So a few words about my background. I'm a co-founder at Grammarly and two-time founder. It's my second company. Both companies who were started here in Kiev. And for Grammarly, this office is office number 4. So we've been around for a while. So my present role is operational role of a product lead, product manager for two Grammarly products, Grammarly Editor, both web and desktop, and Grammarly add-in for Microsoft Word. In the past, so Grammarly is 9 years old now, so I worked on pretty much everything that we have in production today. Our desktop editor, web editor, multiple versions of it, browser extensions, Office add-in. I worked on Funnel. So basically everything there is, I touched it at some point in my career at Grammarly. So, about the product organization at Grammarly, we are a fairly small team. There are 5 PMs. We report to head of products, Ian Mandel, who's based in San Francisco. We work on 10 clients, 10 apps, 10 Grammarly apps, and over 15 different tools, internal, external, NLP related. So it's probably about 25 to 30 projects altogether that the team of 5 PMs and head of product supports. It's, we're a little too small for this kind of scope of, project that we have as a company, but this setup works really well for us. PMs at Grammarly are split by team. So they are kind of embedded with the teams they're working on. Also, they're split by specific product. For example, I worked on Office add-in from the very early days. I know it really well, so I'm kind of product PM on this. And also by specialization, we have PMs that specialize in, let's say, data, and they love data, and they spend a lot of time working on data-related projects, or mobile, for example, that we just launched. And PMs work in a setup of triads together with technical leads and engineering managers with the teams when they're embedded with the teams. On average, there are 2 engineering teams per 1 PM. So I'm going to talk about some of the teams that the product works most closely with. In fact, design is part of product. We believe in design working in tandem with product, and that's how the setup is at Grammarly today. We have 3 product designers, again, working on over 20 projects. That's a very small ratio, but then, again, it works for us. Designers stretch a little bit too thin, but that's, again, by design. So they get to touch all kinds of products that Grammarly has. Designers are also deeply integrated with their product teams, and they frequently rotate through projects. We work, like I said, as one team with designers, and by we I mean product org. And we have weekly design reviews where all PMs and designers gather to go through all design works that needed feedback and inputs from people who look at those designs with fresh eyes. Another project, another team that the product work works closely with is data. We are, one of the operating principles of Grammarly is data-driven. We are big believers in the power of data, and at some point, for a long time, we actually used Mixpanel. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this tool, and we outgrew it. It's a great tool, but for our needs, it lacked granularity, extensibility, in a way data integrity was missing, and for certain complex queries that we needed, Mixpanel could not provide it to us, so we built our own. It's been a massive undertaking. So there are 3 engineers working on this tool, this internal tool that we built and it's called Lunar. That's really cool. I mean, one day we should do a separate, talk and meetup about that. So this tool is, provides real-time data analysis. It tracks pretty much all events that there are in the products. It's highly customizable, has great visualization capabilities, allows for funnel analysis, cohort and retention as well. So yeah, so we work extremely closely with data, and one of our PMs is a dedicated data PM that works with the data team. Growth team or marketing team. Marketing team is one of the biggest teams that we have in Grammarly today, and it's very, very close partner to product team. It goes back all the way to the very early days when my co-founder Max, who now runs growth, and I sat in the basement in Toronto, Canada, where we were working on the first kind of prototypes of what became Grammarly eventually, working on what became Grammarly. So I was building product, Max was thinking about how to market it, and this kind of philosophy of product and growth working together still kind of transcends our operations. So today, PMs from the product team and folks from the growth team, we co-own metrics like retention and conversion as a unit of basically 2 people working on one metric. So that's kind of one way of us to partner. Another really deep way of partnering is working on launches. So growth team provides partners with product team on things like product marketing, communication strategy for launches. It's a very, very deep partnership. We work as a one unit whenever we launch products. Recently we launched our mobile keyboard, and that was a great example of how those teams basically did it together. Another team that we work very closely with is our support team. Support is a fantastic source of user insights, and we draw pretty much, all our qualitative insights from support. We talk to users directly as well as part of user research, but everything else it comes through support. We invest into processes to collect structured user feedback, and that's possible because our support folks are kind of very product savvy, and they're very close to users, but also they know what's possible on the product side. So it's critical for us to give everyone at support a conduit to provide this feedback and provide ideas for how the product can be improved. And also one of the big ideas that we have is making support a revenue center, not a cost center like it is in many companies, but in consumer internet companies, support needs to be a kind of revenue center, because better support means better user delight. Better user delight means better retention of users. So we work on features that allow that to happen as well. All right, so what does it take to be a product manager at Grammarly? I'll talk a little bit about skills and talents that our PMs have. So thinking big and bold. In a startup, we are constantly resource constrained. And we encourage PMs to think big and bold and not be limited by resources that we have today. So it's the job of PM to own the product end to end and identify large opportunities that come their way. And also boils down to specifics. So we expect PMs to provide concrete plans for how to take advantage of opportunities that they see. Another is communication. Clearly for product managers, communication is an essential skill, and we expect our PMs to be able to, rationalize and substantiate every idea and proposal that they have. Again, we're data-driven, and we believe that data wins arguments. And all our PMs are very well versed in data, all things data. Sometimes decisions need to be made not with data, but more with like hypothesis and intuition. And intuition is driven by pattern recognition and experience, and we expect our PMs to always use that as well. But whenever they do, they need to present a strong argument to substantiate their ideas. And having empathy and deep emotional intelligence is very important. Again, because it's communication is very essential to the job of a PM, and empathy is one of Grammarly values. And because PMs touch pretty much everyone in the organization, we expect PMs to exemplify this value. Simplification. Again, being a small and resource-constrained company, we need to get creative about how we allocate resources. We always try to ship MVPs first and then iterate on them. And it is the job of a PM to find opportunities for simplification. Prioritization, I guess like in any companies, there are always a large number of ideas, projects competing for developer resources. It's critical for PMs to sequence those ideas and projects. It's also a function of time management, where PMs need to ensure that they are leaving enough time to think and work on more strategic tasks where they are delivering on technical ones. So basically balancing those quick wins versus large kind of more strategic investments is very important part of PM's job. And balancing offensive and defensive projects. So offensive projects are the ones that are helping grow the business. Defensive ones are the ones that help protect and remove drag on the business, like operations, reducing technical debt, fixing bugs. So again, it is the job of PM to choose where this balance is. Forecasting and measuring. So to be able to prioritize, PMs need to be able to forecast the impact of every project and formulate a strong argument for that. So we expect PMs to be able to forecast and approximate benefits of projects. And every time they make a decision, we expect product intuition to be informed intuition. It's knowing how to formulate hypotheses to approximate benefits of new features. And we build hypotheses based on pattern recognition, our experience, available historical data, available benchmarks. So forecasting is an extremely important part of prioritization. So once products are launched, we use data to drive decisions. So data kind of transcends everything we do. We're extremely data-driven, as you probably figure out. I said it so many times. We use data in most decisions. So it's kind of default state. So whenever we're in doubt, we're looking for clues that data can provide, and only then we kind of resort to intuition. Execution, again, critical skill for any PM. Maybe it's obvious, but grit is another of Grammarly's values, and PMs touch so many people in the work, and to many, PMs are an example of grit. And I'm very proud that working in a team that's basically as impactful and as gritty as this team is. Doing whatever is necessary to ship. We don't make excuses. We try not to make excuses, and are looking for ways to get the products in front of our users as fast as we possibly can. And we recognize there are no specific bounds to the scope of PM role, so we basically do everything. And by everything, I mean, like, we recruit, we write microcopy for the smallest buttons, and we do business development. We talk to lawyers, we do psychotherapy whenever it's needed. We run user research. So everything it takes to ship, we do that. Understanding technical trade-offs. So we at Grammarly don't think that CS degree, computer science degree, is a hard requirement for a PM role. At least for most PM roles, it is not a hard requirement. But we do believe, and we expect PMs to be technical enough to understand the complexity of the features they put on the backlog without having to ask developers. So they have to be, knowledgeable enough to make those kind of independent judgments on their own. And it's also important, we also need to speak the same technical language with developers who are our closest partners. And whenever we need to cut corners or launch an MVP, we need to be able to work effectively with engineers to make right technical trade-offs. Again, for that, we need to be technical enough. Understanding good design and other requirements, and being a designer is not a hard requirement, but we expect our PMs to tell good and effective design from bad one. And what's even more important, PMs should be able to explain the directions for designers to pursue to make changes in their design. So this is the hardest, because sometimes you have like an opinion that you cannot truly explain with anything kind of factual, because it just I just feel that way. And we work as a product organization, as a design organization, on setting up frameworks and kind of support tools to help pretty much PMs and designers to find this common ground, so all the decisions have basis for that. It's not driven purely by sort of taste. And by the way, we're looking for a technical product manager. I said we don't look for. I mean, being technical is not a hard requirement, but this specific role is a really cool one, because this is a PM role for our NLP team, and that works on cool things like deep learning and machine learning, and is spread between New York, where we have an office today, and Kiev. So if you're interested in this role or know someone who is, you know how to find us, talk to us. So kind of switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about a few frameworks and ideas that I personally find kind of essential for my role as a co-founder and as a product manager. And I absolutely encourage everyone who's interested in the role of working as a product manager, or who has entrepreneurial aspirations, or already working on their startups, to learn more about those if you haven't yet heard about them. So I will post this presentation online, probably through our Facebook Grammarly Kiev page, so you will see the links to the resources that I will mention next. So the first one is based on this article that when I read, like it totally blew my mind, and it's by Stuart Butterfield, the founder of Slack, called "We Don't Sell Saddles Here." It's a pretty long and kind of little rambling kind of read, but the ideas here are the following, and it's basically about defining your own market, and it's about how the best possible way to find a product market fit is to define, your own market. It's just an incredibly strong idea. Just think about it. Slack, for example, was never in a instant messaging business. They were in organizational transformation business. From the very early days, and when they launched, they were not competing against, HipChat or Campfire or others. They said, okay, like we're competing against email overloads, and we are competing against sort of organizational kind of this slow movement of information in organizations. So basically, they created their own product category that they owned from the very early days. That was kind of aspirational, inspirational, and that they let them kind of talk about that. And they happened to be building a tool that was the best in this product category. And in a way, Grammarly is kind of followed this same framework from the very early days. Like Grammarly was never a spell checker, or we were not in a spell checker or spell checking or grammar checking business. We were in effective communication business, a product category that we created, and we are still kind of building, and we're communicating, we're talking to the world about the importance of effective communication. And we happen to be building the best tool in the world to help people communicate effectively. It is hard, obviously, to communicate the entire, to teach the entire world about a brand new category is not easy, but there are 2 billion people in the world who communicate in English, so potential kind of prize is also large enough to kind of warrant this effort. To succeed in defining your own market, we need to work carefully from both the product and market end. And what I mean by that is basically from the product end, we need to do a better and better job of providing what people want, whether they know it or not. So that's basically building a better product. But from the market side, we need to communicate the above more and more effectively. It's basically just why people need it and why, for example, Grammarly is the best tool to solve this. So whenever you're building this new market that you want to own it, it needs to be approached from both sides. And for us, why kind of reading this article, it was like, holy shit moment, because from the very early days we believed in that we should not compete in something that's established and already kind of maybe kind of like small and boring, like okay, another boring grammar checker that doesn't work. So we were focused on building this category that talks about communication between people. This is something that's very aspirational, very interesting kind of problem to solve, and people understand it's a hard problem to solve. And in a way, kind of our users are kind of helping us solve this because they understand it's hard. So, and it was possible because Max, my co-founder, and we kind of split those 2 ends from the markets. He approached it from the communication, from the marketing standpoint, when I was focused on the product end. And also another kind of aspect of this is remembering that we are asking a lot from our users. This is also like extremely important, I think. When I built my products, I always have this assumption that whatever we're building, users don't need it. So that's kind of default assumption. It may sound, counterintuitive, but that's how I kind of approach it. So why? Because no one cares, right? So users don't have time. Why would they want to learn about this new, and let's say, in Grammarly's case, this new browser extension, use our editor, understand how it works. So it's just, just another piece of software that they potentially don't need. So it's kind of very important that we are asking a lot from our users to learn about our tool. And to get users to say yes, so we need, again, to approach it from two sides. So we need to give them a great product. We need to do an exceptional, near perfect job of executing on the quality of the product. This is what all our teams are focused on. Our NLP team is working on the quality of checking. Our client or product engineering teams are building those clients that work everywhere people write. So for us, this kind of laser focus on the execution is kind of the way of addressing this from the product side. And from the communication side, we need to do an exceptional job communicating the value of the product, like why users need it. It's also very hard. And the best way to offer this reward, to get users to say yes, is talking to them about who we want our customers to become. It's not about the specific immediate need that they're solving by installing Grammarly and fixing that, or fixing that comma usage in their emails. It's about them being more confident, being more productive, and feeling less frustrated. So this is a communication problem that our growth team is focusing, while teams like NLP team, product engineering team, product team are focusing on kind of building a better product that supports this. So this is an extremely powerful framework that I encourage everyone kind of to learn more about. Another one is it's simple, it's old. And it's by Paul Buchheit, the creator of Gmail. If your product is great, it doesn't need to be good. And the idea here is, whenever you're launching something new, is focus on 3 key attributes of features and make those 3 key attributes exceptional. It sounds easy in theory. And having worked on a number of products, I can say, like, I approached my products kind of thinking this way, and very quickly, there's like a proliferation of features, attributes, and other, ideas that you get from other stakeholders. It's extremely hard. And one company that excels in it is Apple. Every time they launch something, it kind of lacks features, right? Like the first version of Apple Watch they launched, like, lacked a bunch of things. iPad they launched also was like fairly simplistic. iPhone didn't have many things that others did, and so on, right? So Apple is really good in that. So they kind of pick up to 3 attributes, and then they kind of use their product and marketing machine to kind of support that and communicate that. So I'm a big believer in kind of using this framework and everything that Grammarly does as well. And by constraining yourself, you're focused to find the true essence and the value of the product. It's very simple. Again, if you have very narrow focus, then something kind of really cool will emerge. Again, that was an example. That was a case in my work on many products. I can definitely attest to that. And yeah, so it's whenever you're shipping something new, at least 80% needs to be focused on shipping those 3 features. So and for us, I'll give you an example, right? So for Grammarly, those 3 attributes were the simplicity, and basically the simplicity of accepting a correction with Grammarly. So we basically invented our own design language for how adding comma, removing a comma, adding article works. So that's basically a result of us kind of constraining our focus on that simplicity aspect and executing on it. Then accuracy of detection. This is what our NLP team owns, and there whenever we see the data shows that, for example, acceptance rate in certain patterns or types of rules that we are checking for is not great, we take that check down to work on it more, right? Because again, for us, accuracy of detection is critical part of those kind of three attributes. And ubiquity of access, so we want to be everywhere our users write. So if something is not strategic to that, for example, if we get a request to like build an API or do like an enterprise integration, it's not in that scope. We need to be focused, and it worked well for us so far. Okay, the third one is the importance of emotional intelligence in products. This is something I'm personally very passionate about, and this transcends all products that we do, starting from our old products like Web Editor all the way to our mobile keyboard that we recently launched. So we always start, like when we design new products, we try to design not for features, not for for product itself, but for emotions and feelings. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but how this design starts is we're using a framework that some companies like Intercom, for example, are using, and that's called Jobs to be Done framework. I don't know if you are familiar with it, but it's basically an analog to using personas when for designing features or kind of use cases. So this is called Jobs to be Done, and they're focused on job stories. And what's different here from using personas is that you're adding a kind of emotional and motivation aspect to every use case for every feature that you are currently designing for. So all our designers, whenever we do design reviews, we stop using personas. We're using job stories that basically look like this. And it's amazing how many insights and many interesting kind of angles adding motivation adds to kind of the process of brainstorming and reviewing designs. So designing to desired emotions, it's basically the continuation of the same. So every time we're working on a feature, a new product, we start with a design. So for Grammarly, the big emotion that we design for is the emotion of confidence. We want our users to feel confident. We want them to have sense of fulfillment and security. And that's again, that kind of changes the approach to designing. Whenever you kind of run this litmus test of whether or not this specific design makes people feel more confident. So that's one thing that we use a lot here at Grammarly as well. And speaking to users authentically. So that's about using sort of fun, natural, engaging, simple language whenever possible. This is something that we recently started doing, and for those of you who are getting emails, for example, from Grammarly, this is where we use a lot of that. So our marketing emails are very kind of we're very happy about that as a channel. And part of that is because we try to speak authentically, and that really resonates with the recipients of those messages. And we try to use this kind of authentic, friendly language everywhere we operate, in microcopy, emails, social media, landing pages. So it basically transcends everything that our product org is doing now. And delighting through attention to detail. So we are really focused on small things that users sometimes don't really notice, but what helps build this emotional bond with users. And some examples of the things that worked really well for us, again, in our emails, we recently started kind of using badges for streaks that our users write with Grammarly, and that has had like a pretty amazing sort of effect on kind of delight through details, because we see a lot of social media sharing of those badges, and again, it proves that small details, whenever they help build this emotional bond, they matter a lot. Actually, they're not small anymore. Yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna share this presentation. There's a lot of additional readings that I would encourage as well. And as you see, a lot of that is about feeling in UX and behavioral-based designs. Hierarchy of engagement. That's another kind of piece that is very powerful. They are like there's a lot of kind of knowledge, and there's a lot of cool things that we're using. And unfortunately, we don't have that much time. But I would be more than happy to answer your questions.